Hello everyone, John AG here. Welcome back to my channel, Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, real market updates that everyone cannot tells you. So, please subscribe this channel and love you all of my subscribers for your support. And please watch this video till the very end, because YouTube will not push my videos to more people. Your time is the absolute most valuable, irreplaceable asset you possess. The fact that you are choosing to spend it here, arming yourself with the unvarnished truth, means everything to me. We are not just a channel. We are building a formidable community of sovereign, awake, and rigorously prepared individuals who refuse to be victims of a rigged economic system. So, hit that like button, steel your mind, and let's dismantle the illusions and get into the absolute, unfiltered truth about what is being done to your money right now and exactly how you are going to survive it. To understand how to build an impenetrable fortress around your wealth, you first have to understand the precise mechanics of the trap you are currently standing in. We are living through a period of profound historical dissonance. For the last 30 years, we existed in a utopian dream of seamless globalization. It was a world where goods were manufactured in whatever country offered the cheapest possible labor, where energy flowed freely and cheaply across borders without political friction, and where hyper-efficient, just-in-time supply chains kept the cost of living artificially, unsustainably low. But I am here to tell you that that world is dead. It is gone forever. It began to fracture during the pandemic of 2020, and it was entirely shattered by the geopolitical conflicts, proxy wars, and the total collapse of international trust that erupted in the years that followed. Here in 2026, we are witnessing the brutal, unforgiving consequences of global fragmentation. The great empires of the East and West are decoupling. Nations no longer trust one another to supply their most critical resources. Punishing tariffs are no longer exceptions, they are standard economic policy. Defense spending has skyrocketed across the globe as countries prepare for an uncertain, hostile future. And when the nations of the world stop trading freely, when supply chains are violently rerouted based on national security rather than economic efficiency, everything, absolutely everything, becomes vastly more expensive to produce. This is not a temporary blip. This is not a transitory phase that will be fixed by a central bank adjusting an interest rate by 0.25%. This is what macroeconomic historians call structural inflation. It is a fundamental tectonic rewiring of the global world order. And at the exact same moment in history, we have witnessed the staggering explosion of artificial intelligence. AI is an incredible, paradigm-shifting tool, but the mainstream media conveniently leaves out its darkest secret. It requires an unfathomable, mind-bending amount of physical energy and infrastructure. We are building data centers that consume the equivalent power of entire cities. They are straining aging power grids globally, driving up the baseline cost of electricity and raw materials for every single human being on Earth. Faced with these overlapping catastrophic crises, crumbling supply chains, escalating wars, and soaring energy demands, how have the governments and central banks of the world responded? They have responded the exact same way desperate empires always respond when their backs are against the wall: by printing money, by running massive, breathtakingly unsustainable fiscal deficits, by monetizing their own debt because no one else in the world wants to buy it. Here is the hook they are terrified you will figure out. When a government prints trillions of new currency units out of thin air and injects them into the economy, they are not creating new wealth. You cannot print a barrel of crude oil. You cannot print a bushel of wheat. You cannot print a two-bedroom home, and you cannot print an ounce of physical gold. All they are doing is stealing the value of the currency that is already sitting in your pocket and transferring it to themselves. Inflation is not prices going up. Let me repeat that, because it is the most misunderstood concept in modern finance. Inflation is not prices going up. Inflation is the purchasing power of your money going down. It is a psychological weapon, a silent tax that preys exclusively on the financially uninformed. The entire global banking system relies on the absolute necessity that you continue to measure your wealth in fiat currency. But fiat currency, whether it is the US dollar, the euro, the Japanese yen, or the British pound, is a mathematically flawed instrument designed by central planners to systematically depreciate over time. Holding your wealth in cash is not safety. It is a guaranteed, mathematically certain loss of your life's energy. So, if the game is rigged, if the currency is dying, How do you step off the hamster wheel? How do you protect your family? You must radically transition your mindset from the illusion of paper wealth to the undeniable reality of tangible assets. You must aggressively move your labor and your capital into assets that fundamentally cannot be inflated away by a bureaucrat with a printing press. You must buy things that are inherently scarce, eternally necessary, and entirely outside the control of the banking system. Let's talk about the lifeboats. For 5,000 years, through the dramatic rise and catastrophic fall of the Roman Empire, through the devastation of world wars, through the hyperinflationary collapse of the Weimar Republic, and through literally every single economic crisis known to the human race, one single asset has maintained its purchasing power without a single moment of failure: gold. If you turn on the financial news, the perfectly tailored pundits will mock gold. They will call it a barbaric relic. They will smugly remind you that it doesn't yield a quarterly dividend, that it doesn't produce earnings reports, and that it is nothing more than a shiny pet rock. But I want you to ask yourself this one simple, devastating question. If gold is so useless, if it is truly a relic of the past, why have the most powerful global central banks been buying it at a record, frenzied, historically unprecedented pace over the last 4 years? Why are the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, quietly hoarding thousands upon thousands of tons of physical gold bullion in their sovereign vaults? They are doing it because they are preparing for a violent shift in the global monetary order. They know that the current debt-based fiat system, built on the crumbling foundation of the US dollar, is mathematically unsustainable. When global trust in sovereign debt begins to inevitably fracture, the apex predators of the financial world pivot immediately to the only Tier 1 asset on the planet that is no one else's liability. Gold is not just metal, it is pure, localized financial energy. It cannot be hacked by a cyber attack, it cannot be printed by a desperate politician, and it cannot be sanctioned away or frozen by a foreign government if you hold it securely in your own physical possession. In 2026, you must understand that gold is not an investment designed to make you fabulously wealthy. Gold is an impenetrable insurance policy designed to keep you from becoming poor. In the 1920s, a single ounce of gold bought a high-quality, custom-tailored men's suit. Today, over a century later, a single ounce of gold still buys a high-quality, custom-tailored men's suit. It is a time machine that preserves your buying power across generations. But gold has a restless, wildly undervalued younger brother: silver. Silver is not just a monetary metal with a thousands of years old pedigree as money, it is quite literally the most electrically and thermally conductive metal on the face of the earth. You cannot build a high-efficiency solar panel without silver. You cannot build a modern electric vehicle without silver. You cannot manufacture the advanced, microscopic circuitry required for military defense systems, medical devices, or the massive AI data centers currently being built across the globe without physical silver. Right now, silver is caught in a massive structural supply deficit that the mainstream market is entirely ignoring. The above-ground stockpiles that have sustained the market for decades are being rapidly, aggressively depleted by relentless industrial demand, while investment demand is finally beginning to wake up to its profound historical undervaluation. Holding physical gold and silver in your own custody outside the banking system is the ultimate declaration of personal financial independence. It is your way of looking at the central banking experiment and saying, "I opt out." But we must also look beyond money. If we step away from the financial markets and look at the brutal physical mechanics of how the world actually operates in 2026, we see a glaring, unavoidable reality. We live on a finite planet, but human beings possess infinite ambitions. The artificial intelligence revolution, the desperate rebuilding of domestic, on-shored supply chains, the massive upgrading of global military arsenals. Every single one of these macro trends requires raw, physical materials. We have entered an era that historians will look back on as the revenge of the real economy. For the last 20 years, the stock market heavily and exclusively rewarded software, digital platforms, social media apps, and purely abstract technology. We were told that the physical world no longer mattered, but the illusion has shattered. You cannot run a complex AI algorithm without a server. You cannot run a server without electricity, and you cannot generate electricity without pulling natural resources out of the dirt. Commodities are the foundational building blocks of human civilization. When inflation strikes and fiat currency burns, commodities are the very first assets to reprice violently to the upside because they represent real, intrinsic, undeniable value. Look closely at copper. Copper is not just a metal, it is the physical arteries of the modern world. It is the metal of electrification. As global governments push relentlessly to modernize power grids to handle the staggering energy demands of the 2026 AI and EV transition, copper is becoming dangerously scarce. You cannot simply print copper. Discovering a new copper deposit, securing the environmental permits, and building the physical mine takes 10 to 15 years of grueling capital expenditure. The projected supply simply cannot, under any mathematical model, meet the projected global demand. Owning shares in top-tier copper producers or holding broad, hard commodity index funds is a direct, leveraged bet on the undeniable physical reality of the future. And then we must address the master resource, energy. Specifically, the deep structural deficit in uranium and oil. The world is finally waking up from the utopian delusion that we can power a heavy industrial, digitally advanced global economy solely on the intermittent, unreliable breezes of wind and the scattered rays of solar power. The world desperately needs baseload power. It requires dense, fiercely reliable 24/7 energy to survive. Because of this undeniable truth, nuclear energy is undergoing a massive, unstoppable global renaissance. Nations that once shunned nuclear power are now scrambling to build new reactors and extend the lives of old ones. Yet, the uranium required to fuel these reactors is in a massive structural supply deficit after a decade of underinvestment. Simultaneously, despite all the political rhetoric and greenwashing you hear on television, oil remains the undisputed king of the global economy. Oil is what plants and harvests our agricultural crops. It is what transports our physical goods across hostile oceans, and it is the raw material that builds our roads and infrastructure. During deeply inflationary decades, energy stocks and physical energy assets act as the ultimate natural hedge. When your personal cost of living goes up, it is almost always because the underlying cost of energy has gone up. By owning the producers of energy, you radically flip the script. You stop being the helpless victim of rising prices, and you start directly benefiting from them as a shareholder. But true wealth is not just about what is in a vault or a brokerage account. Let's pivot to something you can walk on, something you can build on, and something you can physically defend. Real estate. I am not talking about any real estate. In an inflationary firestorm, the specific type of real estate you own matters immensely. We are talking about prime, highly productive land and hard residential assets in extremely desirable, secure locations. Why is real estate such a devastatingly powerful weapon during times of high inflation? It boils down to two critical factors: scarcity and debt destruction. First, they simply are not making any more land. As the global population continues to expand, and as fiat currency is relentlessly devalued by central banks, the nominal price of land naturally and aggressively drifts upward. It is a true hard asset. If you own a piece of fertile agricultural land, it produces food, a vital commodity that will always, without question, be in demand, regardless of what the stock market does on any given Tuesday. If you own a high-quality multifamily residential property, human beings will always need a safe roof over their heads. Rents naturally adjust upward with the rate of inflation. Your monthly cash flow acts as a shield, protecting your lifestyle. But the real, almost unbelievable magic of real estate during inflation lies in the mechanics of debt. If you secure a 30-year or 20-year fixed-rate mortgage to purchase a highly desirable property, you are executing the greatest financial maneuver available to the middle class. You are borrowing money today with high purchasing power, and you are paying it back slowly over decades with tomorrow's vastly cheaper, diluted dollars. Let me explain that simply, because it is the greatest wealth-building secret of the ultra-wealthy, and they desperately do not want you to understand it. If you borrow $500,000 today to buy a hard asset, that debt is locked in a vault of time. It never grows, aside from your fixed interest rate. But as the government prints trillions more currency units and inflation runs hot through the economy, the actual value of the currency plummets. Over a decade, your nominal income will likely rise just to keep pace with inflation, and the nominal dollar value of your property will likely double. But that $500,000 debt remains exactly the same on paper. Inflation is literally eating your debt alive. It is evaporating your liability. You are actively weaponizing the government's reckless, irresponsible money printing to your own personal advantage. However, I must issue a severe warning for the landscape of 2026. The commercial real estate market, specifically massive office buildings in hollowed-out, crime-ridden downtowns, remains a falling knife. Do not catch it. Focus strictly on where people absolutely need to be. Residential housing in safe, prosperous jurisdictions, agricultural land with secured, ironclad water rights, and industrial real estate tied directly to domestic manufacturing and logistics. Those are the impregnable fortresses that will weather this economic storm. We cannot, however, discuss the financial reality of 2026 without confronting the profound digital revolution of money. You may love it, you may hate it, or you may still be deeply confused by it, but you can no longer afford to ignore it. Bitcoin. Why does Bitcoin matter so much in a hyperinflationary, fractured world? Because it represents something that has never before existed: absolute, unchangeable, algorithmic digital scarcity. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Ever. No central bank chairman can convene a meeting and decide to print more. No corrupt politician can decree that the supply must be expanded to fund a foreign war. No corporate CEO can issue more shares to dilute your holdings. In a world where trust in central institutions, governments, and banks has fundamentally and irreversibly collapsed, Bitcoin offers a pristine system of truth based entirely on mathematics, energy, and cryptography. As we move deeper into the reality of 2026, we are watching the terrifying rollout and aggressive testing of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, across the globe. Make no mistake, these are programmable, highly surveilled tokens issued by governments that give them absolute, granular control over your daily spending. They can dictate what products you are allowed to buy, where you are allowed to travel, and they can even program an expiration date onto your money to force you to spend it, stimulating their broken economy at the expense of your savings. Bitcoin is the ultimate, undeniable antithesis of the CBDC. It is the escape hatch. It is entirely decentralized, permissionless, and censorship-resistant. When you memorize your 12-word or 24-word cryptographic seed phrase, you have the unprecedented ability to carry billions of dollars of liquid wealth across hostile borders using nothing but your own memory. No other asset in human history has ever offered that level of extreme mobility, security, and financial sovereignty. Wall Street and massive institutional funds have already embraced it in 2026, buying up the available supply through ETFs and corporate treasuries. But its true revolutionary power remains with the sovereign individual. You must treat Bitcoin as a highly volatile but fiercely asymmetric hedge against the inevitable mathematical collapse of the fiat monetary system. It is pristine digital property. Just as you demand physical property like gold and real estate to protect yourself in the physical world, in the 21st century, you must demand digital property that you, and only you, hold the private keys to. I want to look you directly in the eyes for this final, most critical realization. Because all the gold bullion in the Swiss vaults, all the physical silver in the world, all the prime real estate, and all the Bitcoin on the blockchain will absolutely not save you if you neglect the single most important asset on the entire board: you. Inflation is not just a tax on money, it is a brutal, unforgiving tax on the unskilled. It is a tax on the easily replaceable. If your job can be done by a newly released AI algorithm, by a few lines of code, or by a cheaper worker sitting halfway across the globe, your wages will never, ever keep up with the soaring cost of living. You will slowly, painfully sink into poverty, wondering why doing exactly what you were told to do didn't work. The ultimate, unbreakable inflation hedge is your human capital. Your specialized skills, your relentless adaptability, your physical health, and your network. In a world being aggressively disrupted and automated by AI, you must cultivate skills that are profoundly, undeniably human. You need deep emotional intelligence, high-stakes negotiation skills, complex physical craftsmanship, deep-level strategic thinking, and genuine leadership. An AI can instantly write a perfect corporate report, but an AI cannot look a man in the eye, shake his hand, and build a high-trust, decades-long business relationship. An AI cannot climb a pole and fix a shattered electrical grid during a storm. An AI cannot plumb a house, build a custom home, or lead a team of exhausted men through a crisis. If you can become truly undeniable in your chosen field, if you offer a service, a product, or a level of expertise that people desperately, viscerally need to survive or thrive, you hold the ultimate power. You can dictate your own price. You can raise your wages in real time, every single month if necessary, to perfectly match or exceed the rate of inflation. Furthermore, you must invest heavily and immediately in your physical health. The global healthcare system is one of the fastest inflating, most broken sectors in the modern economy. By staying fiercely fit, eating whole, unprocessed foods, and maintaining a sharp, resilient mind, you are not just improving your quality of life, you are preemptively saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in future medical liabilities that would otherwise bankrupt you. You must also invest in your local, physical community. When global supply chains finally snap, and when the bright lights of the supermarket go dark and the shelves sit empty, your digital portfolio will not put food on your table. Your neighbors will. The local farmer will. The network of strong, capable, hyper-resilient individuals you actively build around yourself right now is the ultimate unbreakable safety net. We are living through a profound, terrifying, and awe-inspiring turning point in global economic history. The decisions you make right now, sitting where you are in the middle of 2026, will echo loudly for generations in your family's bloodline. You have a choice. You can choose to do absolutely nothing. You can choose to leave your life savings bleeding out in fiat currency, sitting passively in a centralized bank account, trusting that the politicians and central bankers genuinely have your best interests at heart. You can choose to be the boiling frog, slowly, painfully cooked to death by the rising heat of inflation, spending the rest of your life wondering why you work harder every single year, but fall further and further behind. Or you can wake up. You can take the red pill of absolute financial sovereignty. You can trade your melting paper illusions for undeniable hard assets. You can anchor your family's wealth in the timeless stability of gold and silver. You can invest in the raw energy and physical commodities that actually power human civilization. You can build a generational fortress of prime real estate using their own inflationary debt against them. You can secure your freedom in the immutable, unseizable ledger of Bitcoin. And most importantly, you can forge your own mind and body into an unbreakable, highly skilled, hyper-resilient human being. Wealth is not just about having a lot of digits on a screen in a brokerage account. True wealth is about freedom. It is about having the absolute resources and power to protect your family from a chaotic world, to speak the truth out loud without the crippling fear of losing your livelihood, and to spend the incredibly limited, precious time you have on this earth doing exactly what you choose to do. Inflation is a meticulously designed mechanism intended to steal your freedom. By owning these hard, undeniable assets, you are stepping out of the matrix and taking that freedom back by force. Do not give in to fear. Fear paralyzes the mind and leads to ruin. Understand the massive macroeconomic forces at play. Calculate your moves with logic rather than emotion, and execute your strategy with cold, calculated precision. The greatest, most staggering wealth transfers in human history do not happen during times of peace and stability. They always happen during times of massive crisis, chaos, and inflation. For the ignorant and the unprepared, this decade will be a devastating tragedy. But for the awake and the prepared, it is the greatest, most lucrative opportunity of a lifetime. Take absolute control of your wealth. Take absolute control of your destiny. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your unwavering trust. And thank you for being a vital part of this movement. I will see you in the next video. Stay strong, stay endlessly vigilant, and never ever stop seeking the truth. John A.G.